Stone versus the Court of Taxation, 2005. Good morning, fellow class members. Welcome to today's presentation, where I will go into the fascinating world of taxation law through the lens of the case Stone versus the Federal Court of Taxation, 2005. The Australian Federal Court struggled with the issue of whether grant payments made to an elite athlete should be considered income. In this case, it centered around whether grant payments made to the elite athlete Joanna Stone should be classified as income. The argument revolves around the distinctions between conducting a business and pursuing a hobby. I will provide you with an analysis of this case examining the key facts, principles, decisions, and implications of this case while advocating for a clearer definition of income according to ordinary concepts. Defining income. First, we must understand the concept of income. In Australia, income encompasses two main categories: income according to ordinary concepts and statutory income defined in tax legislation. While various types of income are defined in tax law, there is no comprehensive, all-encompassing definition of income. Income, according to ordinary concepts, generally includes earnings from employment, business activities, and services, while one-off windfalls like lottery winnings or hobby-related cash prizes are typically excluded. Challenges in defining income. Defining income has always been a challenge for Australian courts. One of the primary reasons for this challenge is the exclusion of many receipts from the definition of income in tax legislation. Exemptions and preferences in tax law further complicate the matter. The intricate landscape has led to numerous disputes and grey areas in taxation law. Now let's turn our attention to the Stone versus the Federal Court of Taxation case. Joanna Stone, a senior constable in the Queensland Police Force and accomplished javelin thrower, found herself at the centre of a tax dispute. Her tax assessment included both her police salary and earnings from javelin throwing. The primary issues in this case were: 1. Determining income according to ordinary concepts. 2. Assessing whether Miss Stone conducted a business or pursued a hobby. 3. Evaluating if any payments were compensation for personal services. 4. Establishing whether grants received by Miss Stone were a form of income compensation. Facts. In the case, Miss Joanna Stone, a senior constable in the Queensland Police Force, who also represented Australia in sport as a javelin thrower, disclosed her income for the 1999 tax year. She reported her police salary of $39,832, but did not include the $136,448 she received from her javelin throwing activities. The Commissioner assessed Miss Stone's income tax, claiming that the receipts were assessable income derived from her business as a professional athlete. Sporting receipts totaling the $136,448, which comprised of $93,429, government grants of $27,900, sponsorship money of $12,419, and appearance monies of $2,700. The federal court identified a significant problem in this case, blurring of the line between professional and amateur sport. While the pursuit of funds and sponsorship was sporadic, it left room for ambiguity regarding whether Miss Stone was running a business. Not so straightforward. Income and its categories. The case emphasized that income isn't always straightforward. It can be a product of capital exploitation, recurrent or periodical. Receipts from carrying on a business are often income, but not always. Sport versus business. The case highlighted that sporting activities can sometimes be distinct from business activities. A taxpayer's sport may or may not be connected to their career or business. Misleading assumptions. The court cautioned against making assumptions that career and sport exist at opposite ends of the spectrum and that their position dictates that the tax treatment of receipts. Such assumptions can be misleading. Wide survey and scrutiny. A thorough examination of the taxpayer's activities is a necessity to determine whether a taxpayer's receipts are assessable income. A broad survey and exact scrutiny are crucial. The decision. Federal Court appeal. Ms. Stone appealed to the Federal Court, arguing that the sponsorship amounts were income, but contending that the remaining amounts were not income. She argued that she did not carry on any business activity and none of the amounts were reward for services or used for daily expenditure. The court's ruling. Federal Court ruled that Miss Stone was indeed carrying on a business and that all the rewards associated with that business, including incidental ones, were income according to ordinary concepts. Full Federal Court of Appeal. Unsatisfied with the Federal Court's decision, Miss Stone took her case to the full Federal Court, maintaining that the distributed receipts were not assessable income. The full Court's decision. The full Court held that the prize money and grants were not assessable income, but the appearance amounts of money were. The High Court appealed. Both the Commissioner and Miss Stone appealed against the full Court's decision. The Commissioner argued that the sums were business income because Miss Stone had turned her athletic talent into a source of income. In contrast, Miss Stone contended that the receipts were only income if they arose from acts done in carrying on a business, and that she was not conducting a business. High Court's verdict. The High Court allowed the Commissioner's appeal and dismissed Miss Stone's cross-appeal. They ruled that all receipts in question were related to Miss Stone's athletic activities, which constituted the conduct of a business. Pursuing excellence in athletics inevitably led to prizes, increased grants, and better sponsorship deals. Additionally, common law attributes, including whether the receipt is earned, received periodically, comes from asset use, compensation for income loss, and is convertible into money. To determine if a payment is income, the courts follow three principles. 1. Determination based on ordinary concepts and usages. 2. Examination of the specific facts and characteristics of the payment. 3. Objective testing to determine the payment's character. Income according to ordinary concepts. The interpretation of income according to ordinary concepts rely on the natural meaning of the term, court interpretation, and academic analysis. In Stone's case, both levels of the federal court focused on whether her javelin activities constituted the business of a professional athlete. Various attributes and principles were considered, such as whether the receipts was earned, received periodically, or came from a use of asset. The ATO tax ruling and historical constraints. The Australian Tax Office's Tax Ruling 1999/17 provides guidance on tax receipts and benefits received by sportspeople. However, this ruling is based on historical attributes of conducting a business, which may not be entirely applicable to the modern sports industry. This historic framework has constrained that ATO and the courts in applying it to new industries, leading to obscurities and difficulties in interpretation. A new perspective. My proposal suggests that the court should not be limited by the traditional business versus hobby distinction when interpreting income. Instead, I advocate for a threshold where voluntary payments become income when individuals begin commercially exploiting their skills, irrespective of whether they pursue profits or maintain systematic operations. The courts have provided support for this perspective, emphasizing that personal qualities-based payments are unlikely to be taxed and considering whether an activity is ordinarily viewed as a hobby or pastime. Alternative proposal. To mitigate the constraints imposed by the business versus hobby distinction, I propose that the court should focus on commercially exploitation as defining criteria for income derived from personal attributes. Income from personal exertion, as defined in tax law, should encompass a wide range of earnings, including indirect forms of services like sponsorships and direct payments for services such as speaking engagements. This perspective aligns with the ordinary person's view and enables the taxation system to effectively capture income arising from personal efforts. In conclusion, the Stone versus the Federal Court of Taxation 2005 case sheds light on the complexities of defining income, particularly in industries where personal attributes play a significant role. I argue that the court should not let the traditional business versus hobby distinction obscure the interpretation of income. Instead, they should embrace the concept of commercially exploitation as the key criteria for categorizing income. By doing so, the tax system can better adapt to the evolving landscape of modern industries and ensure that income is correctly assessed. It reminds us that income isn't always easy to classify and that a wide survey and scrutiny of taxpayers' activities are essential to determining assessable income. The High Court's decision highlights the possibility of income arising from seemingly non-business pursuits such as sports and underscores the importance of evaluating the specific circumstances of each case. I hope this presentation has shed some light on the complexities of taxation law and the nuanced considerations that come into play when determining what constitutes as assessable income. Thank you for your attention.